DJ Young Slade, the son of Lil Jon, has died at 27 years old. Lil Jon confirmed the news in a statement telling us he is extremely heartbroken.
Whenever Nathan spoke about being his father's son, pride filled his voice instantly. Their relationship wasn't built on celebrity status, it was built on admiration and genuine love. He looked up to his dad not just as a performer, but as a person. In fact, he admired him so deeply that he even had his father's signature tattooed on his body as a permanent tribute. To the world, Lil Jon was a larger-than-life figure known for booming ad-libs and explosive performances. But to Nathan, he was simply Dad, the man who taught him lessons, supported his dreams, and encouraged him to stay focused. He often reminisced about childhood moments spent backstage during early tours, when he'd stand beside his father watching thousands of fans scream in excitement. Those memories stayed with him. The flashing lights, the roaring crowds, the thunderous speakers, they weren't just spectacle. They were bonding moments. They represented a connection between father and son that words couldn't fully describe. People who heard those stories could tell they weren't exaggerated. They were heartfelt recollections from someone who truly cherished the experiences. And that bond is what makes the loss feel even heavier. Because it wasn't just a public figure grieving. It was a father missing his child.
I just send my love and support. You know what I mean? Lil Jon, anything you need that I can provide, I'm here for you. I love you. And you know that, brother. And
Nathan wasn't riding anyone's coattails. He was determined to build something lasting on his own terms. Born May 30th, 1998, in the Atlanta area, he grew up surrounded by rhythm and creativity. Music wasn't just background noise in his life, it was practically part of his DNA. From a young age, he absorbed beats, melodies, and studio energy the way other kids absorbed cartoons or toys. As a toddler, he even appeared vocally on a track by Lil Jon the East Side Boys, proving that sound and performance were already woven into his life before he could even spell the word music. Imagine being so young you can't tie your own shoes yet, but your voice is already echoing through speakers around the world. That early exposure wasn't pressure, it was inspiration. Growing up in Atlanta's music environment meant he was constantly surrounded by artists, producers, and creative minds. Instead of intimidating him, it motivated him. He saw firsthand how songs were built, how crowds reacted, and how a single beat could unite thousands of people. That environment shaped his ambition. He didn't just want to be near music. He wanted to understand it, control it, and create it. Every year, his interest deepened, turning childhood curiosity.
I even got a tattoo of his signature. It was like something ironic for me because it's like, you know, it's just my dad, but had to get the signature. It was like, yeah.
To understand why so many people began asking deeper questions after the tragedy, you have to look at the long and layered journey of Lil Jon himself. He is not just a performer who appeared overnight with a few hit songs. He is someone who spent decades inside the music industry, navigating alliances, rivalries, business deals, and shifting power circles. Over the years, he crossed paths with executives, promoters, producers, and influential figures who operate both in front of and behind the spotlight. When someone with that level of history experiences a personal crisis, curiosity naturally grows because people know his story stretches far beyond what is visible on stage. He was born Jonathan H. Smith on January 17, 1971, in Atlanta, a place famous for producing groundbreaking artists and shaping entire music movements. Growing up as the oldest of 5 children, he carried responsibility early in life. His household was structured, disciplined, and focused on achievement. His father worked as an aerospace engineer and had a military background, which meant expectations were high and excuses were not easily accepted. That environment helped shape his mindset long before fame ever entered the picture. Unlike many artists whose early lives are filled with chaos, his childhood was defined by stability and guidance. He learned the importance of consistency, hard work, and persistence from watching his parents handle their responsibilities. Those lessons would later become the foundation that supported his rise in entertainment. Even before he understood the business side of music, he understood commitment. As a teenager, he showed strong interest in rhythm and sound. Music was not just something he listened to for fun. It fascinated him. He wanted to know how beats were built, how crowds reacted, and how a simple sound could change the mood of an entire room. Friends noticed that he paid attention differently than others. While most people heard songs, he analyzed them. Looking back now, those early signs seem almost prophetic. They hinted at a future that would eventually place him at the center of a cultural movement. But at the time, he was simply a focused young man developing a passion, unaware that his curiosity would one day help shape an entire genre.
What up, Will?
And I was talking about the anger management tours, like 2004. I was like, what, like 5, 6, something like that.
Before diving deeper into the circumstances, it's important to understand who his son really was beyond headlines and speculation. Nathan Smith, known professionally as DJ Young Slade, wasn't just a name attached to a famous father. He was a young man with his own ambitions, his own personality, and his own creative path. At only 27 years old, he had already begun carving out an identity separate from the shadow of fame. He was the eldest child of Lil Jon and his estranged wife, Nicole Smith, and those close to him described him as thoughtful, driven, and quietly passionate about music. Unlike many celebrity children who rely on family recognition, Nathan worked hard to build his own credibility. He didn't chase attention, he chased mastery. Friends said he preferred progress over publicity. He focused on developing skills, learning production techniques, and refining his sound rather than relying on his last name. That dedication made people respect him not as the son of a star, but as an artist in his own right. To those who knew him personally, he wasn't defined by fame at all. He was defined by curiosity, discipline, and a genuine love for music. That's what made his story resonate so strongly with people who heard about him. Because once you understand who he was, the tragedy stops feeling like just another news headline. It starts feeling personal.
And he brought me on stage, and I was just like, bro, I was so shy, bro. I was a little kid, but it's just crazy to have experiences like that and then go home and we just like drinking tea, playing video games.
Behind the scenes, whispers began circulating almost immediately. Some claimed there were details authorities hadn't revealed yet. Others insisted there were unanswered questions buried somewhere in the official timeline. Whether those rumors held truth or not, one thing was certain: this wasn't just a sad story, it felt like a mystery that refused to settle. To understand why the reaction was so intense, you have to understand the man at the center of it all. Known worldwide as the King of Crunk, Lil Jon didn't just make music, he created an atmosphere. His sound shook clubs, his voice ignited crowds, and his presence alone could turn any venue into a full-scale celebration. For years, his name symbolized energy, hype, and unforgettable nights. Fans associated him with loud beats and wild performances, not silence and grief. That's why this situation hit differently. It wasn't just about a celebrity going through hardship. It was about someone whose entire identity had always been linked to excitement suddenly facing something painfully quiet and deeply personal. People who had danced his songs now found themselves scrolling through updates, hoping for clarity. The contrast between his public persona and this private heartbreak made the story feel even heavier. Instead of lights and speakers, the focus shifted to search teams, police reports, and speculation. And the most unsettling part? The mystery didn't fade after the news broke. If anything, it only deepened.
TBT was a great experience because it was a place where I could go and be myself.
Among his many production achievements, one track stands above the rest in terms of global recognition. Yeah. The song became a worldwide phenomenon, earning honors at the Grammy Awards and dominating radio stations, clubs, and charts for months. Its success demonstrated his ability to craft music that appealed to both mainstream audiences and nightlife crowds at the same time. He also produced hits for artists such as Sierra, Yin Yang Twins, and P.D. Pablo, further proving his versatility. Each collaboration carried his signature energy, making his production tag instantly recognizable. During this era, his involvement alone could elevate a track's anticipation before listeners even heard it. For a period, it seemed as though everything he touched turned into a club anthem. His beats were loud, his hooks were unforgettable, and his presence in the industry felt unstoppable. Yet success at that level often brings complications. The larger his influence grew, the more complex his business relationships became. Contracts, royalties, and distribution agreements began playing a bigger role in his career than ever before. Eventually, tension surfaced between him and TBT Records, the label responsible for releasing much of his work. Several artists connected to the company, including Pitbull, voiced concerns about payments and promotional support. What had once looked like a powerful partnership slowly turned into a dispute filled with frustration and mistrust. Despite his confident public persona, those conflicts weighed heavily behind the scenes. The business side of music can be just as intense as the creative side, and he found himself caught in a battle he never expected.
Like just not taking care of his artists. He didn't take care of his...
During his teenage years, his interest in music began transforming into real skill. While attending Frederick Douglass High School, he joined the marching band and experimented with DJ equipment whenever he had the chance. He also started performing at small basement parties, which quickly became popular because of his ability to read a crowd and keep energy levels high. Word spread about the young DJ who seemed to instinctively understand what people wanted to hear next. Those early performances were more than casual entertainment. They were training grounds. Each event taught him timing, transitions, and audience psychology. He learned how to sense when a crowd was losing interest and how to bring them back instantly with the right track. That ability would later become one of his defining professional strengths. After finishing high school, he pushed further into the local music scene, determined to turn passion into profession. His dedication eventually earned him a position at So So Def Recordings, founded by Jermaine Dupri. Starting as an AR representative, he was responsible for scouting talent and evaluating songs. It did not take long for people to notice his sharp instincts. He could hear potential in a track long before it became popular. His rise within the company was fast. He moved up to executive vice president of AR, helping assemble compilation projects that energized the regional music scene. That role taught him the business side of entertainment: contracts, marketing strategies, release timing, and artist development. He was no longer just a DJ. He was becoming a strategist. These experiences gave him an advantage many performers never gain. He understood not only how to create music, but also how the industry functions behind the curtain. That knowledge prepared him for the moment when opportunity and timing would collide, launching him into national recognition.
I don't like to dwell on any negativity. I like to keep everything positive, find the positivity out of a situation and take that and move on.
On stage, the world saw an unstoppable performer. Off stage, life looked completely different. Away from flashing lights and screaming fans, father and son shared quiet moments, relaxing at home, playing games, talking about music, and enjoying simple time together. That peaceful side of life was something most fans never witnessed, but it was the side that mattered most. Nathan also proved he could stand on his own achievements. He graduated from NYU Tisch School of the Arts through the Clive Davis Institute in 2020, specializing in audio engineering and production. That education wasn't just symbolic. It gave him technical expertise that elevated his artistry. Soon after, his professional credits began stacking up. He co-produced a track for Saweetie that appeared in major media placements, and later contributed to a project connected to Ice Cube. These weren't small accomplishments, they were serious industry milestones. By 2025, he was even featured on MTV's Family Legacy streaming on Paramount+, further proving his growing recognition. Step by step, he was building credibility that belonged entirely to him.
Trying to just be kind of political correct. I ain't really want to tell what really happened, but the group broke up because of
That spark turned into determination around 2008 after he watched his father perform live at an afterparty for a major skateboarding awards event. Seeing the crowd react, the lights flashing, the bass vibrating through the floor, the audience shouting along, ignited something powerful inside him. It wasn't just admiration. It was realization. He understood in that moment what he wanted his future to look like. Recognizing his son's interest, Lil Jon encouraged him rather than shielding him from the industry. He set Nathan up with turntables and software so he could experiment and learn. Instead of handing him shortcuts, he gave him tools. That approach allowed Nathan to develop genuine skill rather than relying on connections. His dedication paid off quickly. He enrolled in Scratch DJ Academy in Los Angeles and became one of the youngest students ever to complete the program. That achievement alone spoke volumes about his commitment. Most kids his age were just beginning to explore hobbies, but he was already mastering techniques professionals spend years learning. For him, practice wasn't a chore, it was excitement. Each new skill felt like unlocking another level. And everyone around him could see it. This wasn't a passing phase. This was purpose.
the question, it was almost everybody's attitude changed. Like everything wasn't the same no more when I started asking all these.
Not long before everything changed, he had been standing on one of the biggest stages in entertainment, the Super Bowl 58 halftime show, performing alongside Usher in 2024. It was a triumphant moment that reminded the world he was still a powerhouse performer. The comeback buzz was real. New music was brewing, collaborations were happening, and his career seemed to be entering another exciting chapter. Fans saw a veteran artist who had survived trends, outlasted critics, and continued evolving. Everything appeared aligned: recognition, momentum, and renewed energy. Then suddenly, everything stopped. The spotlight faded, replaced by silence that felt heavier than any bass drop he'd ever produced. No amount of fame, awards, or chart-topping success could prepare someone for the shock he was about to face. His son was gone. The news didn't just stun fans, it left friends and family struggling to process what had happened. One moment there was celebration, the next there was disbelief. The emotional whiplash was overwhelming. People who had just cheered for him on a global stage were now sending condolences. The shift felt unreal, like a story that skipped from triumph to tragedy without warning. And as details slowly surfaced, the confusion only grew. There were timelines to examine, moments to reconstruct, and questions that no one seemed able to answer clearly.
No, because they just see the private jets and the trips and all that. They don't realize, sometimes you can't go nowhere because people...
The mid-1990s marked a turning point not only for him but for club music as a whole. Sounds were evolving, audiences were craving intensity, and nightlife culture was shifting toward heavier beats and louder atmospheres. Right at the center of that transformation stood Lil Jon, ready to introduce something bold. He formed a group that would soon become known for an explosive style unlike anything dominating radio at the time. Their music was raw, loud, and unapologetically energetic. The style that emerged from their work became known as crunk, a genre built on booming bass, chant-style hooks, and aggressive rhythm patterns designed to ignite crowds instantly. When their breakthrough album Kings of Crunk was released, it did more than sell well. It shifted the soundscape of clubs across the country. The project achieved multi-platinum success and established them as leaders of a new musical wave. They followed that achievement with Crunk Juice, which confirmed their influence was not temporary. Their music became synonymous with celebration, intensity, and movement. DJs relied on their tracks to energize dance floors, and fans associated their sound with unforgettable nights out. But his impact was not limited to performing. Behind the scenes, he was producing songs for other artists, shaping hits that dominated charts and playlists. He had a rare combination of talents: stage charisma, technical skill, and business awareness. That combination made him more than an entertainer. It made him an architect of a musical movement. By this point, he was not just participating in culture. He was actively shaping it.
Gotta ask you, man, our brother Lil Jon, man.
Yeah, man, I send my condolences to Lil Man. Nephew, man. We were just on Family Feud together, all of us.
Everything about his trajectory suggested he was heading toward a powerful future. He was focused, disciplined, and determined to create something meaningful. Friends described him as someone who preferred progress over hype, someone who cared more about perfecting his craft than chasing viral fame. That's what makes what happened next feel so shocking. On the morning of February 3rd, 2026, around 6 o'clock, something went terribly wrong. Nathan suddenly walked out of his home in Milton, Georgia, leaving behind his phone, wallet, keys, and even his shoes. According to authorities, he may have been disoriented or in distress, but no explanation fully clarified why he left that way. Some reports even suggested he wasn't properly dressed for the weather. His disappearance triggered immediate concern. Family members sensed something wasn't right, and a large-scale search operation began quickly. Police officers, firefighters, and volunteers combed through surrounding areas, checking neighborhoods, wooded paths, and nearby water sources. For 3 long days, there was nothing but silence. No confirmed sightings. No calls. No clues strong enough to point investigators in a clear direction. Each hour without answers made the situation feel more unsettling. The longer the search continued, the more people began fearing the worst.
Lil Jon, his son, Shorty Putt, and Too Short, man, like a few months back.
You guys made history together. I know you have so much love for their family.
Lil Jon seemed to be living a life most people only dream about: sold-out shows, global recognition, and the kind of energy that could light up an entire arena. Everything about his world looked loud, bright, and unstoppable. Then, without warning, tragedy slammed into his life and silenced that celebration overnight. His son suddenly disappeared under circumstances so strange they felt unreal. Hours turned into panic, panic turned into a frantic search, and hope slowly began slipping away. When he was finally found, it was already too late. No phone, no shoes, no clear explanation. Just questions that multiplied with every passing hour. The story spread like wildfire across social media, entertainment blogs, and music circles. Fans who once watched him dominate stages were now watching him endure unimaginable pain. What made the situation even more surreal was how quickly people from every corner of the industry began reacting. Some sent condolences. Others resurfaced after years of silence. Even rivals and competitors suddenly appeared with public sympathy messages, as if tragedy had temporarily erased old tensions. For longtime followers of his journey, the contrast was heartbreaking. One moment he was celebrating success and legacy. The next, he was facing a nightmare no parent should ever experience. The shock wasn't just about loss, it was about how sudden and unexplained it felt. People couldn't stop asking how something so devastating could happen so quietly, without warning signs anyone recognized in time. What started as a private family crisis quickly became a public mystery. And the deeper people looked, the more unsettling the situation began to feel.
Supporting him at a time like this.
I talked to him yesterday, so my condolences goes out to, him and his family.
When tragedy struck the family of Lil Jon, something remarkable happened. The noise stopped. The same music industry that once buzzed with rivalries, comparisons, and competition suddenly went quiet, as if the entire culture understood that this moment was bigger than charts, awards, or egos. News of his son Nathan's passing spread quickly, and the reaction was immediate. Artists, athletes, producers, and fans didn't respond with gossip or speculation at first. They responded with sympathy, respect, and something rarely seen at that scale: unity. People who had once challenged him creatively or publicly now stepped forward with heartfelt messages. In a world where public feuds often last longer than friendships, that shift spoke volumes. The condolences weren't scripted statements written by publicists. Many of them felt raw, personal, and deeply sincere. It was as if the loss had reminded everyone that behind stage names, platinum records, and flashing lights, they were all still human beings capable of feeling the same pain. One of the earliest and most emotional responses came from E40, a respected veteran known for his long-standing presence in hip-hop. His message didn't sound like industry courtesy. It sounded like family. He referred to Nathan not as his son's child or the artist's kid, but as my nephew. That single phrase carried weight. In hip-hop culture, calling someone family isn't casual language, it signals genuine connection. He spoke about memories, about time spent together, and about how deeply the loss affected him personally. What made his tribute even more powerful was context. Not long before the tragedy, the two families had appeared together on television, laughing and celebrating life. Seeing those joyful moments contrasted with the present grief made the loss feel even heavier to fans watching from the outside. When E40's voice reportedly cracked while speaking about Nathan, it showed a side of strength rarely displayed publicly, vulnerability. And that vulnerability resonated with millions. Support didn't stop there. Messages poured in from across entertainment, including sports. Basketball legend Shaquille O'Neal reportedly reached out personally rather than posting a quick public comment. That gesture stood out. In an age where sympathy is often expressed through short social media posts, taking the time to call someone directly carries a different level of meaning. It signals presence, not performance. According to people close to the situation, Shaq expressed that he couldn't even imagine the pain of losing a child, a statement simple in words, but heavy in emotion. These gestures revealed something profound about grief. It erases status lines. Fame didn't matter. Wealth didn't matter. Past disagreements didn't matter. What mattered was that a father had lost his son, and people who understood life's fragility recognized that pain instantly. Eventually, Lil Jon himself shared a public message, and it struck hearts everywhere. The tone wasn't that of a celebrity addressing fans. It was that of a father trying to make sense of an unbearable reality. He described Nathan as kind-hearted, compassionate, and full of light, someone who cared deeply about others and loved his family fiercely. The words didn't sound polished or rehearsed. They sounded honest, like thoughts spoken straight from a wounded heart. One line in particular stayed with people. He shared that the last time they were together, they told each other how much they meant to one another. That detail hit audiences hard. Many families never get the chance to exchange those final affirmations. Knowing they had that moment offered a small sense of comfort within an otherwise devastating situation. Soon after, he posted a video tribute filled with memories, childhood clips, smiles, music, laughter. The caption was short, but it carried more emotion than paragraphs ever could, a simple expression of love and pain. Fans flooded the post with condolences, prayers, and supportive messages. Comments came not just from longtime followers, but from people who had never interacted with him before. The reaction showed that grief can ripple far beyond personal circles, touching strangers who simply empathize with loss. He also shared his son's music, highlighting Nathan's independence and passion for creating art on his own terms. Even while mourning, he wanted the world to recognize that his son wasn't defined by his father's fame. He had his own voice, his own ambition, his own path. That gesture turned the spotlight briefly from tragedy to legacy, reminding people that Nathan's story wasn't only about how it ended, it was also about what he built while he was here. Across social platforms, tributes multiplied. Fans created videos, montages, and remixes celebrating Nathan's life. Some shared messages about how deeply the news affected them, even though they had never met him. Others spoke about how the situation made them hug their loved ones tighter. In a digital space often criticized for negativity, this moment revealed its capacity for compassion. For a brief time, the usual online arguments faded. Instead of debates, timelines filled with sympathy. Instead of criticism, there was comfort. It felt less like a trending topic and more like a collective pause, a shared acknowledgement that life can change in an instant. Yet beneath all that support, questions quietly lingered. The official statements were brief. Details were limited. And when information is scarce, curiosity grows. People began wondering what truly happened that morning, how events unfolded, and why certain answers seemed out of reach. Because even with an outpouring of love, one feeling remained in the background: uncertainty. And uncertainty has a way of keeping a story alive.
I don't know how that feels, but, I'm sure I know it's devastating for him. So, like I said, my condolences go out to him and his family.
As the initial wave of condolences began to settle, a different tone slowly emerged around the tragedy involving Lil Jon's family. Not louder, not disrespectful, but quieter and more questioning. Support was still pouring in from every direction, yet behind the sympathy, people started noticing something unusual. Details were scarce, timelines were unclear, and official explanations seemed carefully measured rather than fully transparent. In high-profile situations, that kind of silence almost always sparks curiosity, and this case was no different. Reports first surfaced through outlets like TMZ, which stated that authorities had responded to a distress call early that morning. According to what was released publicly, emergency responders arrived quickly, but by the time they reached the scene, Nathan was already unresponsive. The statement sounded clinical, almost procedural, the kind of wording often used when facts are still being gathered. It confirmed that something serious had happened, but it didn't answer the questions that naturally followed. What caused the emergency? Had there been warning signs? Was anyone with him at the time? None of that was clarified. Local law enforcement, identified as Los Angeles Police Department, issued a brief comment saying there were no immediate signs of foul play. On the surface, that reassured many people. But oddly, it also intensified speculation. When authorities rule out one possibility quickly without providing a fuller explanation, it often leaves a vacuum of information, and vacuums tend to get filled by rumors. Social media, as always, moved faster than verified facts. Threads began appearing within hours, each claiming to have inside knowledge, each offering a different theory. Some insisted it was a medical emergency. Others suggested an accident. A few even claimed there was more to the story that hadn't yet been disclosed. It's important to understand why speculation spreads so quickly in moments like these. When someone connected to a public figure passes away, people feel emotionally invested even if they never knew the person personally. That emotional investment creates urgency. They want answers not out of nosiness alone, but because uncertainty feels unsettling. Humans naturally seek closure, and without clear information, they try to construct it themselves. Meanwhile, those closest to the situation remained quiet. Family members did not hold press conferences. There were no lengthy interviews, no tell-all statements, no dramatic public reveals. That silence, however, didn't signal secrecy, it signaled grief. Anyone who has experienced loss knows that the first days are not about explaining anything to the world. They're about processing shock, making arrangements, and holding on to whatever strength is left. Still, public attention didn't fade. In fact, it intensified. Fans revisited old videos of Nathan, analyzing his personality, his energy, his music, searching for clues that might explain what had happened. Some pointed to how happy he seemed. Others tried to interpret lyrics from his songs, wondering if they hinted at struggles no one noticed at the time. None of those interpretations were confirmed, yet they spread rapidly because they offered something people craved, a narrative. Journalists began requesting official reports. Commentators debated whether more transparency should be provided. And through it all, Lil Jon himself remained largely out of the spotlight. He didn't respond to speculation. He didn't argue with rumors. He didn't correct strangers online. That restraint spoke volumes. It suggested that his focus wasn't on controlling the story, but on mourning his son. Those observing closely noticed something else as well. The industry that had rushed to express sympathy also showed restraint. No one exploited the situation for headlines or controversy. Artists who might normally comment on trending news chose instead to stay respectful. That collective decision created a rare atmosphere of dignity in a media landscape that often thrives on sensationalism. Yet the unanswered questions still lingered in the background, quiet but persistent. Not accusations. Not conclusions. Just questions. And sometimes, questions can be more powerful than answers because they keep attention fixed on a story long after the first headlines fade. For now, what remained undeniable was this. A young life had ended far too soon, a father was grieving, and an entire community, from fans to fellow artists, was waiting, not for drama, but for understanding.